Do you ever get that feeling? Someone, no, something is watching you. You look around, back and forth. Nobody, nothing. We've all felt it. That shiver of cold shock that races down your spine late at night when you stumble through the darkness of your own home. We've all raced from the light switch in our hall to our rooms, trying to outrun the darkness. Or rather, what's in it. But why? When I asked my friend Cameron what fear is to him, he said, quote, "When our brain triggers a flight response due to being triggered by phobias or events. And as Google states, fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat." Fear and terror are a unique pair of emotions because while their purpose is to keep us from harm, some people like taking part in activities that will trigger them. Enter Phasmophobia. Phasmophobia is one game among a trend of indie horror games. What sets Phasmophobia apart, however, is its style. You are a ghost hunter, searching the haunted buildings and finding evidence to pinpoint what type of ghost you're dealing with, while the damn thing is trying to kill you. Here's the catch. You can't fight back. Sure, you have some small defenses, but unless you can hide from the ghost or outrun it, you are at its mercy. And trust me, it has no mercy. While it's a blast exploring these haunted buildings and crying out in terror whenever the ghost comes out of nowhere to drag you off into the afterlife, the game does have me wondering, why are we so afraid of ghosts? After doing some digging, I couldn't find anything on actual concrete scientific facts that prove ghosts are real. So I dug in a new direction, did some research, conducted some interviews, and I found some interesting information that may answer our question. To start, let's cover our bases. What is a ghost? Again, turning to Google, the definition of a ghost is, cue the spooky voice, an apparition of a dead person, which is believed to appear or become manifest to the living, typically as a nebulous image. A conclusive answer, but I wasn't convinced that's all there is to it. So I asked people what they considered a ghost to be. All the responses I got had some version of the spirit or soul of a dead person. One person also added something that's not really physical or that doesn't interact in the world the same way that we do. So we have a spirit or soul of a dead person that doesn't interact with the world the same way we do. Great, but how does that relate to other versions of a ghost? Well, there's three common interpretations of what a ghost is. The first being a spirit, which is a being that is the soul or essence of a dead person. The second being a poltergeist, which is a being that physically interacts with the world, moving objects and making noise. And the third is a demon, an evil spirit or devil that has been reported to possess people. So now we have a good idea of what we consider a ghost to be. Now the other base we need to cover is fear. On the surface, fear seems incredibly simple. It's just your reaction to something scary. But when it comes down to examining why we have that reaction, fear suddenly becomes very, very complex. I'll be honest, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty about the whole fear response and how your body reacts. Just go watch old Markiplier videos if you really want to see that.
Okay, so the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through. What the?
All you really need to know about the internal response is that when your brain detects danger, it floods your body with epinephrine and adrenaline. That in turn makes your heart rate increase and your blood pressure rise, and you go into danger alert mode. There is another version of fear that plays a role here: terror. Now, fear and terror are very identical and do very similar things, but the main difference is that fear is your reaction to something dangerous, while terror is the idea that there is something dangerous. Still a bit confusing? Let's simplify it. Fear is your reaction after you've seen the danger, like when the ghost is hunting you and you're running away from it. Terror is the nervous suspense you feel before you see the danger, like when you've been in the dark for a while and you know the ghost can start hunting at any minute. There's a great video on this topic by Adam Millard that goes into how Subnautica uses terror. And if you want to find out more about this concept, I highly, highly recommend you check it out. Link in the description. In order to get our answer, we need to find the connection between ghost and fear. To begin, let's talk about the media. As is no surprise, the media has had a heavy influence on how we see ghosts, oftentimes being the star of horror movies or games. Hey, that sounds kind of familiar. Oh wait! Phasmophobia is one of those games. Shocker, I know. When you start to look at the psychology and philosophy around how we perceive ghosts, it's no surprise as to why directors and game makers alike choose them as horror elements in their games and movies. In my interviews, I asked the question, why do we fear ghosts? All the answers had something to do with the mystery about them, and generally speaking, humans fear the unknown. Are you afraid of sharks? If you're swimming in the middle of the ocean all alone, then maybe. But what about when you're at home in your kitchen? Unless you have galleophobia, the fear of sharks, then probably not. But why? It's a very simple answer. We know that no sharks will be there. We spent years studying these creatures, understanding how they survive, their habitats, the ecosystems they're a part of, and we know that if they come out of the water, they'll die. The same can't be said for ghosts. Unless your kitchen was flooded and someone put a shark in your home, it's common knowledge you won't be attacked. The thing about ghosts is, we don't even know if they exist. There is no concrete evidence that shows that ghosts exist, nor is there any evidence disproving their existence. Because of that, we don't know anything about them. Yes, there are ghost stories and patterns among them. Ancient cultures have different types and powers for them, but we still don't know if they exist. To quote one of my interviews, there's always been mysticism around death or paranormal activity. A ghost from Japanese culture called the yokai is said to have behavior that ranges from malevolent to friendly. And when you know it, a yokai is a ghost type you can find in Phasmophobia, though I can't ever remember them being friendly. Now, there is a catch to this. Just because something can't be proven to not exist doesn't mean that it does. And many ghost sightings or stories of strange events can and often do have actual scientific reasons as to why they occurred. This video is not about if ghosts are real or not, so I'm not going to get into that, but just make sure you do your research before you come to a conclusion. Now, the mystery isn't the only factor to consider here. Darkness and loneliness are two factors that can play a major role in not just why we're afraid of ghosts, but why we fear many things, real or not. First off, the darkness. Oftentimes when you ask people if they're afraid of the dark, they'll say it's not the darkness itself they're afraid of, it's what's in it. Sight is a very valuable sense for your brain. It allows you to detect danger much faster, and once you take that sense away by turning off a light, you're left with just the sounds and the small flashes of movement in the dark. In this situation, your brain goes on high alert. It can't tell if the movement you just saw was the darkness playing tricks on you, or if something actually is there, watching you, ready to strike. So when you can only hear the sound of what's in the darkness, your brain starts to use its imagination to fill in the blanks. Imagine this. You're walking through the house you've just moved into. It's 3 a.m. and the lights are on. You're walking through the kitchen. The floor and the shelves are made of wood, and as they settle, they're prone to making noise. You hear a creaking noise and you look up. Nothing's there. Probably nothing but the shelves just slowly settling. Now imagine the same situation, but it's dark. You're stumbling around, searching for the light switch. Suddenly you hear a creaking noise behind you. It may seem obvious that there's nothing there, but when you can't see if that's true or not, if something is actually there, it's hiding in the darkness. Your brain activates fear response and you begin to feel the terror at what could be lurking very close to you. Now let's add in another factor. Loneliness. Humans are social animals. Most of the time we feel safer in the presence of others, so long we don't see the other people as a threat. When you're alone, you're vulnerable. If a predator gets a jump on you and there's no one there, you may not be able to get away. Let's tell a story to show you how all these factors manifest into fear. It's 3 a.m. You are tired, your eyes are slightly watery, and you're yawning. You just want a nice bag of cheese to eat as a midnight snack. You walk into the kitchen. Quiet. The only sound is the hum of the fridge's cooling system. You stumble around, grabbing at the wall, searching for the light switch. The slow creak of wood sounds off behind you. You quickly turn around, scared that someone broke in. You think you see movement a few feet in front of you. You run your hands along the wall, searching, frantically. Finally, you find the switch. You turn on the lights and turn towards where you heard the noise. Suddenly, you see it. In the mix of darkness turning to light, you catch a half-second glimpse of a silhouette. Then, it fades. This is actually a common occurrence when it comes to supposed ghost sightings. Most of the time it happens when we do a mindless or boring task. Your brain goes into a daydream state and you're not really paying attention. A researcher by the name of Joe Nickel said in an NBC News article, quote, "Someone will be doing some routine chore, like polishing the furniture. They'll be in a near reverie or daydream state, and they'll see something out of the corner of their eye. They'll turn and their mind will fill in the blank. They'll see a Civil War soldier or a gray lady, and then it will promptly vanish. As he mentions here, our minds fill in the blank, and I think it's not so far-fetched to think that if you're in a state of panic, a similar thing might happen. Whether you believe that what you saw is a ghost or not, the idea that it could have been is enough to keep you afraid. It's much easier for our minds to assume that we're in danger than that we're safe, and that something is a threat rather than a friend. One thing I believe many people forget is that while we live in a society now, our brains have been developing through many ages, and we still retain many of the primal instincts we had back when we were just hunting animals with sticks and stones. Back then, our reactions to an unknown noise were not the same as they are today. It was a matter of life or death. And even though our rational brains today can depict whether or not a noise is a threat, that feeling of fear inside of us hasn't ever gone away. So why are we afraid of ghosts? From the evidence we've gathered here, I believe that it's because of our mind's fear of the unknown and how that plays with our primal instincts. We don't have an answer for if ghosts are real or not. When something goes bump in the night, how do we know if it was the house making noise or a paranormal being out to get us? We don't know. So it's easier for our minds to assume that whatever it is, paranormal or not, is dangerous. As a result, when we wander through our dark homes searching for the light switch, we're in a constant state of panic that there's a ghost sitting on the edge of the darkness, waiting to jump out and drag us away. That also explains why Phasmophobia is so effective at scaring us. Darkness? Check. Vulnerability? Check. Unknown? Double check. Strange noises? Triple check. Phasmophobia and other games like it play off our reaction to the unknown. As Adam Miller states in his video, it's why after we die a few times we're no longer scared. Once we see, experience, and study the unknown, we know it. It becomes predictable, and rational logic can take over, and hopefully keep us from harm. While this works for games, playing and studying the habits of the horrific monsters, the same can't be said for real life. You can't study a ghost if you don't even know it's there. And with games and movies constantly reminding us about the terrifying possibility of a ghost potentially being there, the fear can suddenly become very, very real. But at the end of the day, that's just one of a great many possible theories. And if I'm being honest, this isn't even everything I wanted to include. There is so much more out there when it comes to analyzing our response to the fear of ghosts. While I focused this video mainly on our fear of the unknown, that is only a single piece to a very large puzzle. Ancient society, culture, religion, experiences, disorders, and so much more all add to why humans fear ghosts. So now that I've got us started, I want to know what you guys think. What ideas and conclusions do you have? Have I hit the bullseye? Or did I miss completely? Leave your questions, comments, and theories below. And let's see if we can get closer to the answer of why we fear ghosts. Have a great day or evening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
I would walk 1,000 miles.